The last orbit was the kind of bar where questions weren't asked and fights were settled outside, or sometimes inside if the owner was in a good mood. Located on Nexus Station, a neutral trading hub where a dozen species mingled in uneasy commerce, it catered to the rougher crowd. Mercenaries, smugglers, people who preferred cash transactions and no surveillance. Lieutenant Sarah Chen sat in the corner booth nursing her second whiskey, trying to decompress after 3 months of classified operations in the outer reaches. Special Forces didn't get much leave, and she intended to spend hers as anonymously as possible. No uniform, no rank insignia, just another human in civilian clothes trying to forget what she'd seen. The Felinar walked in like he owned the place. He was massive, 7 feet of corded muscle covered in sleek black fur marked with orange stripes. A tiger variant, Sarah's tactical mind catalogued automatically. His ears were pinned back in aggression, his tail lashing behind him as he scanned the bar with amber eyes that gleamed with predatory intensity. He wore the leather harness of a Felinar warrior clan, studded with kill marks. Sarah went very still. She knew the type: proud, aggressive, always looking for a fight to prove their dominance. The smart play was to avoid eye contact and let him find another target. She went back to her drink. "You!" The voice was a rumbling growl that carried across the bar. "Human!" Sarah closed her eyes. Of course. The Felinar approached her booth with the rolling gait of a big cat stalking prey. Up close, she could see the scars crossing his muzzle, the chips in his fangs from past fights. His claws, each one as long as her finger, extended slightly as he loomed over her table. "This is my booth. Move." Sarah took a slow sip of her whiskey. Bars half empty, plenty of other seats. His ears flattened completely. "I said move, little human, or do I need to make you understand?" Around them, the bar went quiet. Other patrons shifted away, giving them space. The Felinar bartender, an older female with gray-streaked fur, shook her head but didn't intervene. This was between the warrior and his chosen prey. Sarah set down her glass and looked up at him properly for the first time. "I was here first. Find another booth." The Felinar's lips pulled back in a snarl, exposing impressive fangs. "You dare refuse me? Do you know who I am? I am Racker of the Midnight Pride, veteran of 30 campaigns, bearer of the Blood Claw honor, and I'm trying to have a quiet drink." Sarah's voice was calm, almost bored. "So unless you want this to go somewhere you'll regret, I suggest you walk away." It was the wrong thing to say, or maybe the right thing, depending on perspective. Racker's roar shook the walls. His clawed hand shot out, grabbing the edge of her table and flipping it aside like it weighed nothing. Glasses shattered. Sarah's whiskey splashed across the floor. "That was a good whiskey," she observed, rising smoothly to her feet. She barely came up to his chest, but she stood her ground as he advanced, fury radiating from every line of his body. His tail whipped behind him, his claws fully extended now. "I will teach you respect, human. Your kind are weak. Soft. You hide behind your technology because without it, you're prey." He circled her slowly, waiting for her to bolt to show fear. "We Felinar are apex predators, warriors born and bred. What are you compared to that? You want to find out?" Sarah's stance shifted subtly, weight balanced, hands relaxed but ready. "Because once we start, I won't stop until you can't get up." Racker laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Such arrogance, I like you, little human, I'll make your death quick. He lunged. Sarah wasn't there. Years of special forces training, the kind that broke most recruits in the first week, had honed her reflexes to superhuman levels. She slipped inside his guard, too close for his claws to be effective, and struck 3 times: kidney, solar plexus, throat, precise, controlled, devastating. Racker staggered, surprise crossing his feline features. No human had ever moved that fast, hit that hard. He swung wildly, claws extended, but Sarah was already moving. She ducked under his arm, swept his leg, and used his own momentum to drive him face first into the floor. The bar shook with the impact. "Stay down," Sarah advised. "This doesn't have to continue." Racker's answer was a roar of pure rage. He rolled, faster than something his size should move, and came up swinging. His claws caught her shoulder, tearing through her jacket and drawing blood. Sarah hissed but didn't retreat. Instead, she closed the distance again, denying him the reach advantage. What followed was brutal. Racker had strength, natural weapons, and a lifetime of warrior training. But Sarah had something else: the cold, efficient brutality of Earth's most elite soldiers. Every strike she threw was designed to disable, to end fights quickly and permanently. She targeted joints, nerve clusters, vulnerable spots that even Felinar physiology couldn't fully protect. She broke his right wrist with a precise lock, kicked out his left knee, drove an elbow into his temple that made his eyes unfocus. When he tried to bite her, a desperation move, she jammed her forearm into his throat and applied pressure until he choked. They crashed through tables, scattered patrons, left destruction in their wake. But slowly, inexorably, Racker weakened. His movements grew sluggish. His roars turned to gasps. His vaunted warrior pride met the reality of human special operations training, and pride came up short. Sarah ended it with a chokehold that cut off blood flow to his brain. Racker struggled for perhaps 10 seconds before his body went limp. She held the choke for another 5, enough to ensure unconsciousness but not death, then released him. The massive Felinar warrior collapsed in a heap, breathing but completely unconscious. Sarah stood over him, breathing hard, blood running down her arm from the claw wounds. The entire bar stared at her in shocked silence. A human, a small human, had just taken down a Felinar warrior in single combat. "Anyone else?" Sarah asked the room. No one moved. She walked to the bar, sat down on a stool, and nodded to the bartender. "Whiskey, top shelf, and a first aid kit." The bartender, Shira, her name tag read, poured with shaking hands. "That was, I've never seen, your special forces." It wasn't a question. Sarah didn't confirm or deny, just took the drink and the medical kit. She cleaned her wounds with practiced efficiency, applied synthetic skin, and bandaged her shoulder. The claws had been sharp, but the cuts were clean. She'd had worse. "He'll wake up in a few minutes," she told Shira, "probably with a concussion and some wounded pride. When he does, tell him the human said no hard feelings." "You're just going to leave?" "My leave is too short to spend it filling out incident reports." Sarah finished her whiskey and stood. "The drinks are on me, including his when he wakes up." She was halfway to the door when it burst open. 3 more Felinar warriors entered, these wearing the same Midnight Pride colors as Racker. The leader, a scarred female with gray fur and one missing ear, took in the scene immediately. Her packmate unconscious on the floor, the scattered furniture, the blood, and Sarah walking calmly toward the exit. "You did this." The female's voice was ice and death. "You attacked our brother. Your brother attacked me first." "I just finished it." Sarah kept her tone neutral. "He's alive, leave it at that." "Leave it?" The female's claws extended. Her companions flanked her, forming a semicircle. "You humiliate a warrior of the Midnight Pride and think you can simply walk away?" Sarah sighed. Her shoulder was throbbing, she was tired, and these idiots were between her and a hot shower. "Look, I really don't want to fight all of you, but if you insist, Kalra, stand down." The voice came from the doorway, a new Felinar, this one older with silver streaking his black fur. But unlike the younger warriors, he wore formal military insignia. Alliance Fleet, high rank if Sarah read the symbols correctly. The scarred female, Kalra, turned with barely controlled fury. "Commander Tyros, this human attacked. This human defended herself against an unprovoked assault by an off-duty warrior who should have known better." Tyros' amber eyes fixed on Sarah, and she saw recognition there. "And unless I'm very much mistaken, she's also Alliance military. Special forces, given how efficiently she handled Racker." Sarah said nothing, but her silence was answer enough. Tyros approached Racker's unconscious form, examining him with clinical detachment. Broken wrist, dislocated knee, concussion, bruised trachea. He looked back at Sarah with something that might have been respect. "You showed remarkable restraint." Most humans would have killed him in self-defense and been justified under station law. "Killing him seemed excessive," Sarah said quietly. "He was just looking for a fight. I gave him one, and taught him a valuable lesson about underestimating other species." Tyros turned to the other warriors. "Kalra, get Racker to medical. And tell him when he wakes that he's confined to quarters for 2 weeks for conduct unbecoming. We're here on diplomatic assignment, not bar brawling." "Commander, that's an order." Steel entered Tyros' voice, the tone of a commanding officer who would not be questioned. Kalra and the others gathered their fallen comrade with ill grace, carrying him out. Tyros watched them go before turning back to Sarah. "I apologize for my subordinate's behavior. He's young, aggressive, and still laboring under the delusion that physical prowess equals superiority." The commander gestured to her booth, or what remained of it. "May I buy you a drink to make amends?" Sarah considered refusing, but something about the old warrior's manner suggested this was more than simple courtesy. "All right." They sat at the bar, and Shira poured 2 whiskeys without being asked. "Your special forces," Tyros said it as fact this time. "Probably tier 1, given your skills. I've seen a lot of warriors in my 40 years of service, and very few could take down Racker that efficiently. I'm on leave, civilian right now." "Of course." Tyros' ears twitched with amusement. "And I'm just an old cat enjoying retirement, except we both know better." He took a sip of his whiskey. "The war ended 5 years ago, but the Alliance still maintains its special operations units, preparing for the next conflict, or preventing it if we're lucky." Sarah remained silent, neither confirming nor denying. "I fought alongside human special forces during the Kreth incursion," Tyros continued, his voice distant with memory. "Watched a 6-man team hold off an entire Kreth battalion long enough for evacuation. saw what your kind can do when push comes to shove. Impressive, terrifying, and utterly ruthless. We do what's necessary. Yes, you do. Tyro's amber eyes met hers. That's why I want to make you an offer. Sarah's instincts prickled. I'm not looking for work. Not work, partnership. Tyros set down his glass carefully. I command a joint species tactical unit within the Alliance fleet. We handle delicate situations, hostage rescue, counter-terrorism, extraction operations, the missions that require finesse rather than firepower. Sounds classified, very and very necessary in these uncertain times. He leaned forward slightly. I have Felinar warriors, excellent troops, but they lack your kind's adaptability. I have Vorak specialists, brilliant tacticians, but limited in close combat. What I need is someone who can think like a human and fight like a demon. Someone who proved tonight that size and species don't matter when skill meets determination. You're offering me a position based on a bar fight? I'm offering you a position based on watching you disable a trained warrior twice your size without killing him while injured in under 3 minutes. That's not luck. That's elite training and exceptional judgment. Tyros slid a data chip across the bar. No pressure, but if you're interested, this has details. Think about it. Sarah picked up the chip, weighing it in her palm. Part of her wanted to refuse immediately. She'd seen enough combat, enough blood. But another part, the part that had joined special forces in the first place, was intrigued. I'll think about it, she said finally. That's all I ask. Tyros stood, leaving credits on the bar to cover the drinks and the damages. Oh, and Lieutenant Chen? When Racker wakes up, he's going to be mortified. Felinar warriors don't handle defeat well, especially at the hands of someone they considered prey. If he seeks you out to apologize, and he will, be kind. He's young and stupid, but he has potential. Sarah raised an eyebrow. How do you know my name and rank? Tyro's whiskers twitched in what might have been a smile. Because I made it my business to know who the best human operators are. You're listed as Special Activities Division, Classified Operations, Distinguished Service Record. And officially, you're on medical leave after a mission that doesn't exist in any public record. Apparently, my anonymity needs work. Only to those who know where to look. He moved toward the door, then paused. We're not so different, you and I different species, different methods, but the same dedication to protecting those who can't protect themselves. Consider my offer. The galaxy needs warriors who understand that strength without wisdom is just violence. He left, his tail swaying with the controlled grace of a lifelong soldier. Sarah sat alone at the bar, turning the data chip over in her fingers. 3 months ago, she'd lost half her team on a mission she still had nightmares about. She'd come to Nexus Station to drink, to forget, to convince herself she could walk away from the life. But Tyros was right about one thing: warriors like her didn't really retire. They just found new battles to fight. Shira refilled her glass without asking. That's the 3rd time this month someone's picked a fight with a human and lost. You people are terrifying. We're persistent, Sarah corrected. There's a difference. Is there? Shira gestured around the bar. Racker has fought in 30 campaigns, won honors, survived battles that killed thousands, and you put him down in 3 minutes. He underestimated me. That was his mistake, not my strength. Sarah downed the whiskey, feeling the burn. Every species has advantages. Felinar have strength, speed, natural weapons, but humans, we have stubbornness. We don't know when to quit. We'll fight with broken bones and last breaths because giving up isn't in our DNA. Sounds exhausting. It is. Sarah smiled slightly. But it keeps us alive. She stayed for one more drink, then made her way back to her rented quarters. The data chip felt heavy in her pocket, full of possibilities and new nightmares. But as she lay in bed, shoulder throbbing, she couldn't help pulling up the information. Joint Species Tactical Unit, elite operations, making a difference. Maybe retirement could wait. 2 weeks later, Lieutenant Sarah Chen reported for duty aboard the Alliance carrier Unified Resolve. Commander Tyros met her at the airlock, his whiskers twitching with satisfaction. "I knew you'd come." "Just to check it out," Sarah insisted. "No commitments." "Of course." He gestured down the corridor. "Your team is waiting to meet you. Fair warning, Racker requested a transfer to this unit when he heard you were joining." Sarah stopped. "You're kidding." "Felinar respect strength above all. You beat him, so now he wants to learn from you. Consider it a compliment." In the briefing room, Sarah found an eclectic mix: Felinar warriors, Vorak tacticians, a Thrin engineer, and in the corner, looking sheepish, Racker. His wrist was still in a regeneration cast, but he stood at attention when she entered. "Lieutenant Chen," he said formally, "I owe you an apology. I was arrogant, disrespectful, and I underestimated you because of your size and species. It was the behavior of a cub, not a warrior." Sarah studied him. The arrogance was gone, replaced with something like humility. "Apology accepted. Don't let it happen again." "I won't. I swear on my pride and my ancestors." He hesitated. Would you be willing to train with me, to teach me how you fight?" "I've never encountered techniques like yours." "Maybe." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "If you can keep up." An off-duty cat warrior had picked a fight in a bar, not knowing the stranger was special forces. Now that same warrior stood ready to serve alongside her, having learned the hard way that strength came in many forms. And Sarah Chen, who'd come to Nexus Station to forget about fighting, found herself right back where she belonged, leading warriors into impossible missions. Some things, she reflected, were just inevitable.